Hello, and welcome to another episode of English Podcast Zone USA. Today's podcast is for advanced learners. Today I'm going to be talking about Mia the Witch. Chapter 1. Honestly, I would love to write more of my own stories for the podcast. It's just a matter of time. It takes more time than adapting fairy tales or other stories. Although recently loads of you, like 5 of you, sent in stories and emailed them to me. So, I've got lots of content for the podcast coming. So thank you so much. You are honestly the best audience I could ever hope for. I am so happy to have you. Thank you so much. I get so many comments from all of you. I don't really say that enough. Thank you for all the comments. You really leave a lot of comments. Like, every episode, usually has like 4 or 5 comments on it, which is actually quite a lot, because a lot of podcasts, they don't get any comments. So if you love witches, which I do, I love witches, then you will love today's story. It's all about witches. But these aren't your evil fairy tale, cauldron and broomstick and black cat witches. No, these are nice, soft, friendly witches, for the most part. One of them is maybe not so cuddly, but generally, it's going to be a nice, soft story. Once there was a witch called Marabella who lived in a deep, dark forest. As with most witches, she was not actually evil, but she did magic, and so the people were afraid of her. And whenever there was a storm, or a bad harvest, or a child got sick, they said, "It is the witch's anger." Marabella lived a quiet life. She had a black cat and a white cat who always walked side by side, with their tails wrapped around one another's, like the night wrapped around a star. So she named them Starry and Night, and she loved them very much. The witch spent her days reading spell books, mixing potions, and gardening. Because everyone was so afraid of her, they never dared come near her house. And so she lived in peace. But Marabella was lonely. More than anything, she wanted someone to share her home with. With magic, she could create beautiful paintings, delicious food, and powerful potions. But she could not make another person. And as lovely as Starry and Night were, she grew tired of talking to creatures who could only say, meow. But just as the world was afraid of Marabella, she too was afraid of the world. People confused her. They rejected her kindness and glorified her magic. And still, the months and years passed, and no one dared enter into the dark, dark forest to visit her. She would live and die there, all alone except for her cats and her plants. One day, Marabella set off on a journey. She packed some bread and cheese, a bottle of wine, and a few potions, and set off with Starry and Night trailing behind her. For the first few days, she had a lovely time, wandering through the forest picking berries and mushrooms. She knew this place well, and while she met no other humans, she did come across friendly creatures who were more than happy to see her. A witch is a friend to all of nature, although the townspeople would say the opposite. Soon, though, Marabella reached the edge of the forest and came across a farmer. At first he greeted her, but when she introduced herself as Marabella, he ran away screaming. "I will have to change my identity, it seems," she said. "What do you think, Starry and Night? What name should I go for?" The cats just meowed, so she decided to call herself Mia. Soon, Mia came to a city. The people there walked with their heads bowed, and in the streets not a single word was said. The markets were dull and quiet, and even though Mia had never been in a city before, she instinctively knew that it should have been loud with the cries of marketplace sellers and friendly conversation. There was a dark and terrible atmosphere to this place, and the people even stared at her dear cats with suspicion. In the center of the city stood a grand, coal-black castle. And when Mia went and asked who lived there, the guard said, "What? You haven't heard of the great wizard Karluk? A wizard lives here. Not just any wizard. The most powerful wizard in the world." Mia was amazed. Here, they were not afraid of magic. She asked to see the wizard, but the guards laughed in her face. The wizard does not take audiences with little beggar girls. So Mia clicked her fingers, and a flower appeared in her hand. "Huh," said one of the guards. "You might be able to do some simple tricks, but you can't do real magic like him." Mia sighed and lifted her arms in the air. For a moment, nothing happened, but then slowly, with plenty of concentration, she started to float. The guards stood with their mouths open as she floated higher and higher, sweeping past the walls of the castle. All the people inside pointed and stared at her through the windows. She flew up and up, right up to the tallest tower, where a man with wild black hair was working in a study. "Hello," she said. The man jumped, having been absorbed in his writing. "Who are you?" he said, irritated. "I am Mia, the witch of the dark, dark forest." "And you are?" The man stood up and bowed. "I apologize. I thought that this was surely some trick, but I see that you are a talented user of magic, though perhaps not as much as I. I am Karluk, the king of this land, and I must say, you are the most beautiful witch I have ever seen." Mia blushed, and the spell was broken, sending her falling to the ground. Luckily, she caught herself just in time, floating a meter above the ground and slowly descending. Starry and Night hissed and pawed at her leg. "You have a quite charming king," Mia said. And just then, the doors of the castle opened and Karluk himself stood right there. The guards, still in shock from her display of magic, stood to attention at the sight of their ruler. "My dear Mia," he said, "are you all right?" "I'm fine, thank you." "Brilliant. Then you'll be happy to join me for dinner tonight." Mia had no other plans, so she agreed and spent the rest of the day wandering around the city in a daze. Word of the incident spread quickly, and now the townspeople looked at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. That evening, she was taken into an impossibly long dining hall and greeted by Karluk, wearing colorful and expensive robes. Suddenly, Mia felt very common in her black dress. They were the only clothes she had, and they were nowhere near as elegant as Karluk's attire. They sat down, and Karluk clicked his fingers. 2 plates of beautifully cooked chicken appeared in front of them. Mia was amazed. Conjuration, making food and other objects appear in thin air, was not an easy form of magic. She could only conjure the flower because it came from her own garden, and she had loved and tended to that flower for many years already. Yes, they ate. Karluk told her all about his kingdom. It was a prosperous land because all the merchants, the rich men who traveled around selling goods, feared him. In fact, it seemed like everyone feared him, which kept the place running well. He had no counsel and no enemies, although he did not specify if this was by accident or design. But that is our privilege, is it not, as users of the magic arts? To guide the common folk who cannot understand the knowledge we have. Mia had never thought of herself as very special. Of course, she could use magic, and it seemed she could use it well if she had managed to impress someone of Karluk's importance. But she still lived in a house, ate food, worked and slept, just like everyone else. "The only thing I really care for is my garden," she said, sipping on the wine at the table. It was bitter and sweet at the same time, and she only continued to drink it to be polite. Karluk smiled. "Here, you can have the grandest garden in the world, with fountains, hedge mazes, man-eating plants, and the sweetest smelling flowers." "Mia," he said, taking her hand in his, Won't you share my home with me?" Mia felt a strange feeling in her chest, like a bird trying to escape a cage. "I need some time to think." "Of course," he said, "but you will do me the honor of staying here tonight, won't you? We can talk more tomorrow." She agreed, and a servant led her to a beautiful bedroom. The bed was practically as big as her cottage, and there was plenty of space for her to curl up with Starry and Night. But Mia couldn't sleep. She imagined the grand garden he spoke of, and the thought of it hurt her head. Besides, she missed her flowers and her potions table, and she missed the mysterious sounds of the forest at night. Here in the castle, she heard nothing but the distant cries of drunk men. A grandfather clock struck midnight, and Mia got out of bed, opened the window, and climbed down the side of the castle. She slipped away with Starry and Night and left the city behind.